Greetings and welcome to the Sabbath Image Experiment. It feels like a long time since I've done a show, but it wasn't so long ago we did that Spirit Box live with Bobby Hale. Tonight we have another co-conspirator, Temple Babalon, Choronzon, Listening Post Alpha Illuminate, Groucho Trout. Groucho, how the hell are you?
Doing well and good. Fantastic. Glad to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here. We've been meaning to do it for ages.
Right.
And I also should say to like Marco Visconti and Sue Terry and other people that are waiting to come on, after I've done this show, I'm kind of back on because I had to take a break. It was all getting too much. Okay, so Groucho, how did you get into magic?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting story, I guess, for most people. I guess, like a lot of people, perhaps I like to say I came in through the back door. I got into magic as a result of trying to find answers to all these strange experiences I had. High strangeness, the whole thing, ever since, I was a wee bairn. Uh,
Nice Scottish phrase there.
Right. So yeah, yeah, ever since childhood, as far back as I could remember. I lived out in the fairly rural part of Kentucky for most of my formative years. We lived on a house on a hill made out of stone next to a stream, a creek. And I guess the first significant thing I can remember was uh, sort of a ultra-terrestrial encounter, probably around 6 or 7 years old. I was in the front yard with my mother, and I was poking around a chestnut tree, harvesting some chestnuts from the ground that had fallen. And I think she was off on the other side of the yard getting some mulberries. And we saw this red light in the sky. It was probably around like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And we see this red light kind of just dancing around in the sky. It wasn't like floating or anything. It was like teleporting, for lack of a better word, just dancing around. And we were looking at it and just like, wow, no idea what was going on. And then it was like that. Suddenly there was this giant red sphere by the we had a cherry tree also farther down in the front yard. It's probably about 50 feet away, and judging from the distance and the size of this thing, it was probably about 30 or 50 feet in diameter. It's glowing red sphere with like a black ring around it, kind of tilted at an angle, right?
Wow.
And these beings started coming out of the side of it. They were floating out of the side of it, and they were curled up in like a fetal position as they were coming out. And that's like the last conscious memory at that point that I had. But I figured that there was this other experience that I had that I remember from the same age, where I wake up in this like white room. I'm laying at a table, laying down, and I look up, and there's these 3 figures in like loose fitting blue clothes. They might have had caps or hoods on or something. They were like hunched over, and they were doing something to my feet. And I look up at them, and the one in the middle like looks up at me, and I feel something like jab into the bottom of my foot, and then I pass out, right?
Yeah.
And
No, sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like all these experiences that I had in childhood, I'm realizing now they were like keys to my current work. In the way that they, not only the actual experience, but the way they revealed themselves, because I wasn't aware that this was an ultra-terrestrial contact until about 20 years ago. Because in my like naive 7-year-old brain, when I looked up and I saw this thing floating there, I thought it was like the planet Saturn had somehow gotten real close to the Earth. And of course, that doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
But it was about 20 years ago. I was reading a book about UFOs, and they were talking about angel hair or this fine material that falls out of the sky after like a close encounter. And then it all clicked. I was like, oh, because the thing was, once this thing left, there was these bubbles that fell out of the sky. They were like brown, I don't know, like iridescent but scummy bubbles, or kind of oily but dry at the same time. I don't even, but
Yeah.
even at that age, I wanted to like gather some and put in a jar for evidence. I've always been like a nerd or whatever, right? And I was like, something weird just happened, and I need evidence of this. This could be analyzed or something. But it was like it would just turn into dust. I remember like seeing it, the bubbles like popping on the blades of grass and leaving this like dry residue, and it would just kind of just disappear like a fine dust, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I guess that was the first thing. It was just
So, may I ask? You said you were with your mother.
mhm.
Did she witness the same thing, and did you talk about it?
Yes, yeah. Like I said, about 20 years later, once I figured out what had happened, I asked her if she remembered anything. She doesn't recall seeing anything up close or any beings or anything like that, but she does remember seeing the red light dancing around in the sky. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
I don't really recall that part. I do remember like pointing up at the sky, but she was the one that told me. She was like, yeah, actually, now that you mention it, I remember seeing like this red light kind of just dancing around,
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we all had experiences there at that house. I don't know if it was something to do with that location or what, but the whole family, my mother, father, and my younger sister, we all had, classic high strangeness, footsteps. We lived in a 2-story house, and we'd all be in the living room watching TV, and we'd hear someone walking up the stairs.
Yeah.
Clear as day. It's clearly someone walking. It's not the house settling. Yeah, we'd see shadow people walking around. My sister, actually, she had a lot of, because we were both, I'm sure you're familiar, a lot of times this type of thing tends to focus on like children, starts early, right? So
Yeah.
she had a lot of experiences too. I mean, we had like when we were around that same age, we had bunk beds in the same room, and she thought I was like pranking her or something, but she remembers like someone like stroking her hair and like tapping on her back, on her spine, which apparently I've read is a fairly common thing in abduction cases. And
Yeah.
the the obvious one is she told me that she woke up in the middle of the night and there was your classic gray alien, and we're on the second floor. I mean, never mind the fact that it's a gray alien, but we're on the second,
Yeah.
but we're on the second floor, and she said she woke up and there was a gray with its face. We had a window right next to our beds, and its face was like pressed, squished in her terms against the glass with
Eek.
both of its hands,
Yeah.
on the window.
That's quite powerful stuff. So the second experience you described in the White Room, I mean, that's so classic alien abduction.
Mm.
Did you see the beings that were were they tall whites, were they grays, were they?
Right. Like I said, they had like loose fitting kind of dark blue clothes on, and they had blue skin too. They I don't think they didn't have like the huge almond shaped eyes, but they were large black eyes, more round, but blue
Yeah.
skin. And yeah, I've been working with blue skinned entities lately, so some kind of connection there I haven't fully unraveled yet. But
Well, all the Hindu pantheon tend to have blue skin.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that is an eruption of extremely high strangeness, and I mean, I've never had an experience anything like that at all. So I've got no uh, baseline kind of. But how did you process that and continue to be a fairly normal child, I guess, until you got a bit older?
Right. Right. Well, like I said, I started just. I've always been a reader. Uh, so I started doing research, just trying to figure out what was going on, and I started to, after so many encounters, it was like, I think I was about 11, and I had a sleepover with a friend, and woke up in the middle of the night with just like a insane thirst. And Went into the living room to go to the kitchen to get some water, and like all the lights were on, and I was like, this is strange. And I was standing in the living room, and I just felt like something was off, and I was tuning in to this off feeling, and I could see things sort of zipping around the room, like super fast. And eventually I could see these were like more like your classic grays, right? They were zipping around the room, and they were like picking up objects and looking at them. I could see them for a split second as they paused to pick something up.
Mhm.
But it reminded me of my sister's experience with the face like literally pressed against the glass, because I could see them. They would pick up an object and they would hold it up to their face like this, right? So then that was right around the time, I guess, Whitley Strieber's Communion book came out. And like I said, being an avid reader, I was at the bookstore, and like a lot of people who saw the cover of the book, it kind of triggered something, and I was like,
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm seeing aliens, you know. So yeah, that's I got into the whole alien thing for a long time, and just trying to find the answers to what they are, what do they want, why are they here, how are we, how are they interacting with us, vice versa.
Have you come up with any conclusions?
Well, eventually I stumbled across, uh, always had an interest in, just weird, spooky, paranormal stuff. So eventually, came across Aleister Crowley, and a lot of the magic, occult literature, talking about communicating with these, discarnate praeter-human intelligences. And then you see, the drawing of Lamb, and it's
Yeah.
and then I started putting two and two together after that point, and it was like, I think there's something to this, so I'm going to start working with this, to try to figure out what's going on, and at this point now I'm like using, well, as you know, with the LPA, communicating with them, trying to establish familiar ground and contact with them to see
Yeah.
what the heck is going on here,
Yeah. It's interesting because I got into magic through more a kind of art. I'd read about it in books like Burroughs, and it would be side mentions. And I felt there was like a thread going through sorry, I've got new teeth. Great literature, painting, even, Dadaist, surrealists. So I came out from a very intellectual kind of way, and then thought, well, magic is a way, Crowley said it himself, of manufacturing genius. So for most of my magical career, I thought that, spirits were basically psychological phenomena of the human mind. You've come from it the opposite direction, and until I met you guys, I was like, there's no connection between alien phenomena and goetic spirits, or
Sure. I mean, yeah, that was a really condensed version of how I got here, but there were for a while there were two separate threads where because yeah, I was into all that similar stuff you're talking about, Robert Anton Wilson and Discordianism, and I've always been into hip hop and experimental electronic music and art and collage and painting and drawing and whatnot. So yeah, there were these like two separate threads that eventually merged at a certain point, which was probably, like I said, about like 20, let's say 23 years ago.
Just 23 years ago.
Right.
So the work you're doing now, do you think those, I mean, I don't know, you got to explain it to me. Are there factions? You got your Greys, you got your Nordics, you got your tall whites. Are these different kinds of spirit entities, like magicians would say, okay, that's an undying, a water elemental, or that's a salamander, a fire element? How does it fit together is what I'm very fascinated.
It does seem that way. It does seem that way to me. I mean, there's I feel like there's so much going on. I obviously I don't have all the answers. There is a connection, though, it seems like. I don't think that it's. I've never had personal experience with like various factions or anything. I only consciously recall working with like these blue skin beings, and the one time where I saw the classic Greys. But from what I've read, they're all working together, and there are various factions. I've read plenty of stories of the Greys come and take you, and then there's the tall Greys, and then the Nordic blondes will come and show you a giant mantis being.
Oh man, I actually have experience of a giant mantis being, but that was on an extremely high dose mushroom trip.
Well,
It was fantastic. It had a little blue cloak, and I've written about it, and I've never forgotten it. It was. So, do you think? Well, I can't say people didn't talk about aliens and UFOs. Perhaps we should say UFOs didn't really become a thing until Roswell, but then you can go back and you look at stories of Victorian Americans seeing sailing ships. Always
right.
seems to fit with their cultural ideas.
Sure. Even like the fairy folk mythology,
absolutely.
and all that. They've got their different ranks amongst the fae. Flying in ships in the air, and armies marching through the air and whatnot, right?
Yeah. So the idea I get is these are also influenced by Dr. David Gallimore, or is it Richard Gallimore? David Gallimore, I think. He's a DMT guy.
Okay.
And he has this idea that there are civilizations that have reached, the crisis point. You blow yourselves up, or so they've embedded themselves somehow in deep reality. And these are the things that we reach with psychedelic drugs. Obviously, they crashed into your life with no need for that. Maybe you're like sensitive. I do believe some people are more sensitive than others. But we're really at a boiling point in the early 21st century where psychedelics are being used more and more and more. Magic's going pretty much mainstream, and it's all tying in with the UFO stuff. What is going on? What is going on, Groucho?
Yeah. I mean, again, I can't remember the exact quote, but Crowley mentioned, to paraphrase, it was like the only hope for humanity's survival is contacting these praetor-human intelligences, and you're talking about psychedelics. I've had lots of experience in that realm as well, and that all ties into like shamanic initiation, right? Where the shaman gets taken by the spirits into like a cave, and they're laid down on a table and they're cut open, and they have magic stones and crystals implanted into their bodies that give them contact with the spirit world to, you know, help heal humanity, right? I think my personal theory is that in these modern times, it's so like technologically focused, we've lost contact with the spirit world.
Yeah.
And these spirits are here to do the work, that they've been assigned a job, and they're going to do it regardless, by any means necessary. You know, it's like if we think that there's no local shamans initiating people anymore these days, at least, you know, where we live. So the spirits are going to do the job as best as they think, you know, under whatever circumstances. They're like, this person seems like they might have some potential. We're going to initiate you, whether you're aware or ready or not. You know, that's sort of my theory at this point anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, because one of the main reasons I started this channel was I was kind of skeptical about an other world of spirits, and, you know, it seems naive now. So we've got these preternatural beings. Do you think they're interested in mankind as a kind of, you know, like an angelic kind of religious, oh, we want to make you better, we want to improve you, or are they just kind of experimenting on a lower species?
I think all of the above. I think all of the above. And even to maybe go into the other polarity, there very well may be some that are antagonistic towards us. You know, I don't know, but that's just an assumption I'm making just from interacting with, you know, incarnate intelligences, human beings. We all have our agendas and, you know, motives. So,
Yeah.
but I do think there is a faction that is very concerned about our survival and our expansion of consciousness and understanding of the world, our relationship with the world. Those are the ones I'm interested in, obviously.
Yeah. See, I've got this theory that, you know, what you'd call an egregore, a group mind, that primitive man saw the power of a waterfall or the power of the moon or the power of the sun, and they started feeding it their energy, and that somehow created it. But I think I'm maybe putting the chicken before the egg there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a very homocentric idea of things, that everything starts with human consciousness,
Right.
because I've experienced levels of human consciousness that are far beyond our general primate, you know, human primate stuff.
Right.
So I'm wondering, are all the, you know, the history of magic, when they contact, say, Paimon or Belial or any of these, Lucifer even, are they aliens?
I mean, in the most general term, sure, right? They're non-human intelligences. You know, they may or may not have physical bodies. You know, I do think that they're the religious stuff and everything you were just talking about. I think that it does have something to do with these intelligences that we're working with. Like if you study, you know, read mythology and religion, all of like the Watchers, the Grigori, the fallen angels, Prometheus, you know, which a lot of people equate to Lucifer, bringing fire, technology. And, you know, I see parallels with that with the internet now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, this technology may have been seeded somehow by these ultra-terrestrial intelligences, and we don't even fully realize how the technology is evolving our consciousness, right? If it's from a more like a human-centric perspective, it's like, oh, we created this, and aren't we cool? Look at what we did. But on the flip side, we can't anticipate the repercussions of the type of technology that we're putting out there and implementing.
Absolutely. There's the great AI debate at the moment. Is it good? Is it bad? As a chaos magician, I say we embrace it, to be honest, because, evolution, human evolution is a thing I'm very interested in. I think I got it from William Burroughs when he was like, you don't drag your fish tank on a dry land if you're a fish.
Right.
When we've got an astral body, that's what he was saying, was we can travel anywhere in these astral bodies. And have I lost my point there?
Evolution of consciousness.
Evolution of consciousness. So time binding was a very important concept for Burroughs. I think it was a Polish guy called Korzybski. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Sure.
So writing, the god of writing is Thoth or Thoth or Hermes. So as soon as we can write, that's a technology that allows us to, build on each following generation and evolve. And I do have this bizarre theory that we are kind of, at the moment, we are the soup. We are the human soup that will create a godlike AI as intended. We're almost like amoeba in the great workings of the universe.
Right. Yeah, it might be just a subtle semantic distinction, but along the same lines, I think it might be possibly we're creating a physical infrastructure for an eternal being or beings that have been around for a long time. We're creating an infrastructure for them to manifest here so that we can have clear communication with them,
Yeah.
But it's like, in order for us to grow, it's just like, shamanic initiation, right? Or any kind of, martial arts testing or whatever. I've really been into martial arts my whole life, but you can't just be told this is the right thing to do. The true initiation is like a test, right? Like you have to, we've shown you some things. Now, are you prepared for it? Have you become responsible enough to wield this knowledge, this technology, responsibly?
Yeah. And that leads on to an interesting question about ritual magic. I don't even know where to start here, but grimoires, right? I used to look at grimoires when I was coming from a psychological chaos perspective and think, why on earth, and even earlier to the PGM, why would you need a cock's head at this certain degree of this? It doesn't make any sense. It seems like a broken technology, and this is not a new idea, but it does involve geometry, pentagrams, circles, language, words of power, all that. Can you make any sense of that? Do you think we're groping towards something that it's like a tribe that have never seen a plane before, like cargo cults and all that stuff? Are we kind of, how do we get it right? How do we perfect our magical techniques so we can have clear communication with these beings instead of the patchy, weird? Even without LPA, we haven't solved the mysteries of the universe yet.
Right. Well, oddly enough, I was about to bring up the LPA and the type of work that we're doing. I think as long as you're doing something, right? Number one, you've got to engage with whatever it is and put yourself out there and do the rituals, do the ceremonies, and do the work, as they say. But for me personally, that's the reason why I'm working with the LPA now. I got into the ALW cipher from Alan Greenfield's books as part of my journey, tying the ultra-terrestrial with the ritual magic. And I found huge value benefits, nothing but results that comes from using the cipher. And, again, I mean, that's piggybacking off of work that's been done since back in the day, right? Way back, using numerical linguistic codes to communicate with these beings, whatever they may be.
Yeah. And do you think, like I'm thinking of John Dee and Edward Kelly,
Sure.
that seemed to be one of the key, it's one of the key foundations of ritual magic and the whole occulture thing.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed like the first earnest attempt for human beings to open a dialogue with preternatural, ultra-terrestrial forces.
Right. As far as like a sophisticated, complex linguistic structure, I would definitely agree. Yeah. Go ahead.
So, do you think with developing AI and computers and stuff, we're getting nearer to that? I feel instinctively that AI is what we're building to. I think.
Yes, I mean it's inevitable. It's happening. It's going to happen. I think that the outcome of that, like I said, with the advent of any kind of new technology, the results are going to be something that we cannot anticipate. Maybe only in retrospect through some obscure poetry or someone's surreal paintings or collages or something that we can look back and be like, oh well, here's evidence of where we are now, but I don't think we can really anticipate what the results of that are going to be. I think it's going to say more, and this is more on the beneficial aspect, because a lot of people are afraid of AI and whatnot,
Yeah.
but I think it's going to reveal a lot about our own consciousness and what it means to be human. And if we focus on that, it's going to enrich our experience, I think.
Yeah. And oh God, this is a very deep philosophical question, but why do you think that one hominid got picked out to be, to have this extra stuff, language, and I watched a nature documentary where fish are using tools. There's a lot about nature we haven't understood.
Right.
And we put men way at the pinnacle, or mankind way at the pinnacle. But why do you think we evolved so rapidly? Is that a God thing? Is it so we can join the Galactic Federation of Beings or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, we could define it in lots of different ways. I think we're all just individual units of some cosmically, epically huge object that's just conscious and self-aware, and it's put these like tendrils out in this like self-created mirror world where it's reflecting upon itself so it can know itself.
Beautiful. That's like the idea of the Ruach floating over the waters of Genesis and all that.
Sure. Yeah. There's so many different metaphors and, ideas, which to me proves that whatever it is wants us to know us itself, by any means necessary. It doesn't matter what culture, what time period you're from. It's going to put something out there into the ether that encourages us to look beyond just ourselves.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think with internet culture, I mean, I would never have been able to talk to you or even meet you 10 years ago, even,
Right.
but now we have the technology. We have the technology to link pretty much every human, every first world human
Sure.
on the planet. I think we are creating a kind of super brain, a super conscious, an egregore grows from that, and they're gonna know that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if it was subconsciously seeded by some sort of non-human intelligence. The whole concept of creating an internet, it all built up to this point. It's
Yeah.
it's clearly expanding human consciousness. I mean, it's like, these days with the internet's still relatively young, right?
Oh
I mean,
God, yeah.
it's just like unrestricted id just put out there, because of
Yeah, it totally is.
the anonymity and everything of the internet. People just, spout off just whatever they're feeling at any given moment, and just click, 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 and they're putting it out there. And like you said, the rest of the people on the planet that have access to it are it is like a precursor to telepathy almost, where people's
Well,
just random thoughts and feelings and what they're doing is just out there.
I mean, it's absolutely magic when you think. I mean, if John Dee had a laptop and a microphone and a camera, can you imagine? He'd be like, "Oh my God, this is
Right.
it."
Yeah.
So what we're going to have in 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, it's very fascinating to me as a kind of chaos magician, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. So do you still do traditional ritual work?
I do. Yes. I mean, I've had good, solid results doing things differently, but I've gotten such even better results when I incorporate ceremonial ritual context to this type of work. Like yeah, like I said, with the again with the LPA, incorporating the paranormal aspect to it with the using the spirit box to communicate, and the the new eon cipher, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, spectacular results with that when using it within a ritual context. And I even work with astrological omens or whatnot, full moons, new moons, stellar alignments and whatnot, because I found that there are certain types of intelligences that you can communicate with more clearly during certain times, and that goes back to classical grimoire magic,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. You got your sublunar spirits and
Yeah, the angels with the deacons and everything, spirits for every hour of the day.
absolutely.
Mhm.
I should recount. I've probably told this story before, but when I'd met Bobby and you and Leah, I think it was just the three of us at the time.
Mhm.
I'd been kind of interested in the true grimoire, the Grimoire and Verum, because Jake Kent is, God bless him, devil
Right.
bless him, God knows. So I've drawn a big fucking 9-foot floor circle. I put hours of labor into it, and I was I used Goetic liturgy, but also with you guys' influence in the back of my mind. And I was going to invoke a whole lot of spirits. I've been fasting, but also drinking a little bit of red wine. And
Sure.
so, big rituals are big rituals. So this was a big ritual. I burned the correct incense, purified, consecrated, used a hand-forged dagger and all that kind of stuff. So I did Isis, who is my patron goddess. I kind of became a votary of her way long ago, 2008 or something. And then I did Isis, Astaroth, and what was the goddamn third one? Hecate.
Right.
So I went Astaroth, Hecate, Astaroth. And I was like, oh, I can't do any more. Fantastic ritual. Collapsed on the floor. next day I thought I'll just type in to the ALW cipher Isis Astroth Hecate. Came up 222, which is my magical number.
Of course.
And I was just like, yeah. So
yeah. Yeah, like you're saying, I do think there's value to the traditional ceremonial ritual magic. It's I think for a certain group of people, we want to maybe, I don't know if recontextualize is too strong of a term, but update things for these new times that we live in. But to speak on that again, I was sort of a de facto leader of a small group of magicians here in Louisville for a while, a few years ago, and was blessed to have these people that were just game for what I wanted to do, because I was really looking for people that already had some background in magic to work with. But anyway, I ended up living with this girl. We were going out, and at one point we had she lived in an old house, and there was an apartment next door. It was just a split building, and her friend owned the building that we were renting it from, and the space next door was empty, and there was this big, huge living room space with hardwood floors. So we were doing weekly rituals there. I wasn't using like chalk or anything, but I was using masking tape, drawing, putting sigils and symbols on the floor with the altar set up and everything. And we were really focused on working with the ultraterrestrials at that point. And I can't remember the date, but it was like a super blood wolf moon or whatever on a new year, or close to a new year. And after about a year of work with this group focusing on that, woke up in the middle of the night, and here's this blue fella standing there, right? Like physical, like my girlfriend at the time, she was awake, and she was the one like had an iron grip on my arms, like shaking me. She doesn't remember anything though, but I remember her waking me up, and I'm eyes adjusting to the dark, and I'm like, what is this? What am I seeing here? And as my eyes adjusted to the dark, there's this like blue skinned guy, with the bald head, big black eyes. And I was like,
well, like black eyes, like you see in horror films with no pupils or nothing, just like,
oh no, more like a classical alien, large. They weren't like the almond giant, gray type eyes, but still big black shiny eyes. And I remember the one I remember the one odd detail. He kind of had like a little nose and like I don't know what you call it, like a cleft, like a split in the upper lip a little bit. And I wanted to stay awake and talk to this guy, but it felt like I was being drugged. Like as soon as I recognized what was there, it was like some sort of anesthesia. I was just like, hey, I want to talk to you. So who knows what happened after that. I like to get.
So when was that, Groucho?
Yeah, like I said, I can't remember. My grip on terrestrial time has been slippery at best these days. It was like a super blood wolf moon
Within the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Because I also remember that you had some weird burn type marks on your
Yeah. That was probably the most recent like physical thing that happened. Yeah, I have to go back in my journal. I don't remember if I had like a weird dream or anything, but this is what I've been doing for
Uh,
for many years. So yeah, just it was after an equinox, and I want to say I went to the Serpent Mound on that equinox too, and it was like the day after. I had it. I was just outside having a smoke and had this like crazy itch on my side, and I went to scratch it, and I felt like some scabs or something. And yeah, lo and behold, there's these two perfectly round
yeah, I saw them, man.
dots, circles. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't hurt. I didn't put any kind of peroxide. Never got infected. I still have the scars right now.
Yeah, so I think it might be interesting. We'll probably have to kind of wind up soon, but tell me a little bit about your work with the Serpent Mounds, and do you think geography? Do you think there are power points? You know, we hear a lot about ley lines and telluric currents and all that. Do you think there is
Absolutely,
a power of place?
I do. I do think so. Matter of fact, the I'm on year 2 of a 2-year moon working uh, ritual series of rituals I've been doing. The first year we're all on the new moon. This year, 2023, is all on the full moon, and the idea is to re-enchant and connect with local geographic points and basically create like a portal or a vortex, or to tune into our pre-existing portals and vortexes to bring down some positive energy from the heavens, from the stars, right? uh yeah, the Serpent Mound definitely had some crazy experiences there on a winter solstice one time. um yeah, yeah, it's that's the whole space-time thing is has been my focus lately, with these like parallel timelines, parallel universes, um, different
Yeah,
different energy points on the planet that are connected to each other, that are I don't know how you could put it, like metaphors for different time periods and spaces that we could explore if we access them.
yeah, that's an interesting way. I mean, here in the British Isles, I've done a lot of stone circles, man.
Right.
I was at the one in Stornoway recently. It's one of the oldest, and oh my god, I don't think of myself as particularly sensitive, and we were there with a bunch of tourists, but the Callanish stones in
Hmm.
uh, Orkney, I believe. No, it's not Orkney. Stornoway, yeah. Yeah, but places of power, thousands of years old. Why did they erect the stones there? What was their purpose? Ritual sites, I'm thinking.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think you know, people who were sensitive, the shamans or whatever, were picking up on the energies there, and utilizing that to communicate with the spirit world, whatever you want to call it. To help the community, right? To help people, not just on a physical level, but on a spiritual, psychic level, right? Which is my main interest right now. Like I said, it's just a relentless expansion of consciousness is my
That's a
current
fucking
current goal.
great quote, man. A relentless expansion of consciousness, because it
Mhm.
is all about consciousness, human consciousness. And, I'm not sensitive. I'm lazy. So I use psychedelics a lot. Too much, perhaps. But it does put me in touch with the spirit world. It absolutely does. And I
Sure.
don't know an easier way.
Don't
Uh,
don't don't sell yourself short, though. I used to think that I wasn't that sensitive uh, until a few years ago, is when the whole Voodoo current inserted itself into my work. I'd never thought of it. I've always, like, yeah, I'm an Aquarius, very
oh, I'm an
logical.
Aquarius.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very logical approach to things. Never thought of myself as being like a medium or a channeler or anything like that until the Guede came a knocking, and I was like, well, Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, you know you're on form when they come to you.
Yeah, yeah. Because like I said, I wasn't just had a passing intellectual interest in Voodoo, until
Yeah.
3 times they showed up. I was even the first 2 times I was like, interesting. You know, I'll log that in my journal for sure. But after the third time, I got the message. I can be stubborn sometimes and skeptical even of my own experiences.
Oh
So,
man, I am the ultimate skeptic. I don't even believe in my own work.
well, I do.
Yeah, well, thank you. Groucho, so what next for Groucho Trout?
Yeah, just continuing with this reenchantment, connecting with the local landscape, connecting lines of energy with the earth, trying to create portals, talk to these ultra terrestrials. Uh, yeah,
Sticking with the listening post alpha and Temple Babylon Choronzon projects, which I certainly intend to do.
Oh yeah. I'm working on. It'll probably be in the LPA Journal 2. I've been working on a ALW cipher analysis of Betty Andreasen. She was a contactee experiencer from the 60s. Well, she had experiences all through childhood, but it's one of those rare cases I found where there was a published like barbarous words from
Wow, really?
yeah. It was during a hypnotic regression, but apparently some ultra terrestrials just took over and she started spouting off these barbarous words, and there's only like one sentence that's been published, and I just run that through the cipher, and I've got lots of interesting results, but that'll probably be in the LPA Journal too. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to come out. I think I might get one drawing in it because I don't do any work, you see.
oh, your artwork's great. I love your artwork.
Oh, and Groucho, your artwork's great. I'm gonna. In fact, is there any way I can like put a link to some of your artworks? It's absolutely fucking amazing, man.
uh yeah, it's mostly just on my Facebook and my Instagram, so
Okay, I'll link those in. Well,
cool.
Groucho, this feels like a good place to finish. Although I haven't even started, truly. You'll come back
Right,
on again with Bobby and all them.
for sure,
I've pretty
absolutely.
much said, apart from the exceptional individuals, this channel is kind of about our work and
Right.
what we're doing. So thank you so much, Groucho. Uh,
Oh,
I
thank you,
love you,
Steve.
man. You're a beautiful human being.
Same here, man.
Yeah, and I'll see you soon, buddy.
Right on. Take care.
Okay, see you soon.